Hey guys, it's Courtney from Willows Bloom, a sanctuary of self-care for female entrepreneurs on willowsbloom.com and here on YouTube. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about email funnels. That is so not exciting, but I'm gonna make it more exciting and I'm gonna make it much more human today. So I'm gonna give you guys some really great advice that I got from a book called Dot-Com Secrets by Russell Brunson. And I'm gonna give you guys some information that I wish I knew way long ago. Okay, so what are email funnels before we get started? Well, email funnels are the emails or series of emails that you use in order to funnel people in from the big wide world all the way down to your very specific product. You're getting them closer and closer to your desired goal, which is to sell them your product. And that sounds pretty robotic when you start thinking about it. How can I get people to buy my product? How can I convince them or sell them on this? It just doesn't seem very human. So today we're going to talk about how to make it actually sound from the heart and be authentic to who you are. So let's first explore why someone would buy a product from you in the first place. Well, the first reason I think is the most important is that they know who you are and they trust you. They know your story, they know that you're a human being, and they feel like they can relate to you and trust you. Think about all the times when you made a purchase. You probably had some sort of connection with that person. Most of the time, you have to know someone for months online before you actually go ahead and make that purchase with them. So just think about that when you're putting out your products and your emails and conveying yourself online. You really want to show who you are authentically, because people will connect with that more because you're human and they're human and they just want to see that you're human. So going off of that, you have flaws and you need to show those in order to show that you are human. But you've also learned a few things along the way. So you really need to explain to them what your story is and what you've learned. And the very last thing is that you actually care and you can actually deliver on your promise. And if you don't, you provide a money back guarantee. That is what makes people trust you and your product, because you're guaranteeing that you will deliver it. So let's go through and actually break down the kind of advice that Russell gives in his book, Dot-Com Secrets. The very first thing that he mentions is that every hero, every attractive hero, which we'll talk about in a second, has a backstory. So I love this, and I think that this is very important because my favorite astrologer, Wonder Girl, she talks about how in astrology, or how in journalism actually is where she picked it up from. When you're writing an article for journalism or when she's explaining her stories in astrology, that you always want to start a few months back, or you always want to start in the past and work up to this point where you are now, because you want to give people the context or the backstory, because having that backstory makes everything meaningful. If I tell you that I'm selling a weight loss program, but you don't know my backstory about how I used to weigh 400 pounds and now I don't, it's not so meaningful. It's not transformative. It's just another weight loss program. So what people connect with is your story, what you've been through. So you can just walk them through the kind of events that had to occur for you to actually produce this program and get this result. So what do you do if you actually didn't go through this? What if you have a weight loss program and you know that it works and people have been using it and it's great, but you actually have never needed to use it because you've always been in shape and you've always eaten healthy? Well, in that scenario, you should actually use the backstory of a client, of someone that you've worked with that's been successful through your program. The backstory doesn't always have to be yours, although it can be, a little bit more meaningful if it is yours. What the person is trying to do is try to see what's in it for them. And if they can see that your backstory is related to a product that you're selling, and that product will provide them the transformation that they're looking for, then they might actually buy it. So when they're reading your email and they're reading the backstory, they need to see themselves in that person that you're describing, and they need to see what they will also get because they want whatever you have, that sort of thing. So the backstory is super powerful because it shows that human side of yourself. and that transformation that you went through. But when you're telling your backstory, you shouldn't just list it out like a matter of events. What you really need to do is tell it like it's a story, like it's a parable. You want to include things that will give people lots of emotion or include a lot of emotive words, because you want people to connect with those emotions. That's what people actually remember. People remember stories and the way that you made them feel. They don't just remember the features that your product had. So go back to your memories as a kid. What were your favorite books? What were your favorite stories? Think about the kind of things that those stories had and the way that they made you feel. That's how you want to make your clients feel. So you want to give them emotions, you want to give them rawness, but even more importantly, you want to give them the lesson that you learned, the transformation that you had, the nugget of wisdom that transformed your life. If I tell a story about my weight loss journey, I want to say what that one thing was that made everything else click. Because in that moment is a nugget of wisdom. And that is really what's going to sit in people's minds and solidify, and they'll remember that. They'll connect with that. So if you can give them a little nugget of wisdom that you experienced, they'll want your product because they'll also want to have that experience as well. Don't put yourself up as if you know everything and you've just done everything perfectly, because people don't relate to that. Think about the people that you like to follow or that you listen to. I bet you anything that they tell stories about how badly they screwed up, about how many failures that they had. Every person that's of influence connects with other people by showing their flaws, their mistakes, their failures, and their raw human side. And you're not just gonna show your failures, you're gonna show how it made you feel. So if I was 400 pounds and I started my weight loss journey and I kept starting it and restarting it and restarting it, I need to include that in my story. I need people to know that I failed and that it really hurt every time I failed, and that I was disappointed in myself and I didn't know if I would ever live up to my own expectations. These are the kinds of things that you need to include. But don't just include the flaws. Don't just include the failure. You also have to include that transformation, that nugget of wisdom, the thing that you learned, the thing that made it click, as I was mentioning before. Because you're providing them with the solution. So you have to address the problem, the feelings, the failure, the human flaws, but also the other side of it, which is how to get them out of that, because that's probably where they're at right now too. And the last key element of this, before we move on to the next part of this video, is that you kind of have to let go of being liked by everyone. And this is very hard for me. I probably am a recovering people pleaser, if I'm being honest with myself. And that means that I need to make an effort to just be 100% myself and include my thoughts and opinions and beliefs about things, even if I think that they're polarizing. Because when you try to get everyone to like you and you're not choosing a polarity, you're not choosing a stance, no one's gonna like you. You have this kind of lukewarm element to yourself. You're like straight in the middle trying to appease everyone. Well, if you just polarize people a little bit, you're gonna have a ton of fans and a lot of support from the people who agree with you. But you're probably also gonna have some haters. And that's just something that you're gonna have to get used to. Okay, so before we move on to the next section of this video, which I promise is super interesting and very important and transform the way I think about my writing. Before we move on to that, I want to mention that you guys should check out the video that I'm linking up in the cards and down below that talks about how to actually schedule and plan out your days in a way that's more intuitive. Because if you like this video, you might like that one as well. Okay, so now moving on to the next part of the video, we're going to be talking about your attractive character. So this was a new concept to me, although I'm not sure why it was, because this is like in every movie. But the attractive character is the persona that you are writing from. So every time you sit down to write an email, write a blog post, write a post on Instagram, you need to think about this from the perspective of your character, from your persona. And of course, I'm not telling you to pretend to be someone that you're not. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you need to clarify your message and be very intentional about the kind of person that you think that you are and the message that you're trying to deliver. Because, like I said, you can't please everyone, and that means that you can't be everything to everyone. So just choose a character that aligns with where you are at in your journey, and you'll see that it will benefit your clients even more. So I'm gonna go through a list of what these characters are. The very first one is the leader. So the leader is the person who has already gone through this transformation. They've learned everything, they've gained so much knowledge, and they're on the other side. And they're extending their hand to come out and get you, to bring you across with all their skills and transformation and knowledge and everything like that. Examples of leaders that I like are Michael Hyatt and Louise Hay. These people transformed their life, and then they looked back and thought, how can I help other people do this too? Amy Porterfield is also a good example. She says that she will always try and make sure that everything that she does is good and works before she tells you about it. So I'm not gonna say I'm the leader. Even though I do try the things that I tell you guys about and I think that they work, I don't feel like I've made it to that place where I'm really totally embodying that aspect before I share the knowledge. Because I like to dabble in so many things, what I like to do is actually be the crusader. This is the person who's in it with you guys, who is in the process of learning about it, and while they're learning, they're also sharing. They're probably a few steps ahead of where their ideal client is, so they have more to share and the client has more to learn. But they don't have all the answers. They're not that perfect leader, but they don't try to be. They're right there with you guys and they can sympathize more with that journey. People who are crusaders are me. And for example, Natalie from Soulshine Astrology, I love her. She has really great work and she talks about how she's working on certain things. For example, rebalancing, the work-life balance. Like she talks about how to do that, but she also mentions that she's still working on it herself. So that's the crusader, the person who hasn't completely finished it, who's still working on it, but who has lots of information and wisdom to offer the clients or their audience. The third type is the reporter. So the reporter is actually the person who's collecting all of the information from other people because they don't have it in their brains themselves. So good reporters, for example, are Oprah Winfrey or Tom Bilyeu. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. He is a YouTuber who's interviewing tons of experts on all these different kinds of topics. He's not an expert on all those topics, but he doesn't need to be. He is the one who's gathering them all together, who is integrating their knowledge and bringing them to you. So he's like the host. The reporter is a really great role if you're not an expert in something, but you're interested in so many things. And the very last one that the author mentioned was the reluctant hero. And this is the person that doesn't necessarily want to be in the spotlight, but they just gained so much incredible knowledge that they thought, I have to share this with people. Even though I don't necessarily want to share this, I feel an obligation to do that. So an example would be the author himself, because he calls himself a reluctant hero. And in my opinion, it would also be Greta Thunberg. I hope I'm saying that right, I don't know. I don't think that Greta does this for attention. I think that she's out here to talk to us about the environment and inform people because it's a very important topic that people are maybe not as enlightened about as they should be. So she's more of that reluctant hero. All right, so these are all the profiles. So actually reflect on where you're at in this journey. Maybe you're the leader who is the expert. Maybe you're the crusader who's right there a few steps ahead of your audience, giving them feedback and everything that you're learning. Or maybe you're the reporter who's gathering knowledge from other experts all in one place. Or maybe you're the reluctant hero. You're the expert who really doesn't want the spotlight after all. Please comment down below which one you think is your attractive character, because I would love to know. Thank you guys so much for staying tuned. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you actually get my videos pushed to your account each week. Bye!